Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session here of ramblings and takeaways. And welcome to today's show, which we will actually look, or I will talk about the Oscars that happened this year, Oscars 2022. And it was quite interesting, and I think one of the things that people want to talk about as well, and people have talked about over the past week, was the infamous slap that occurred when Will Smith slapped his fellow actor and sometime friend Chris Rock on stage, live in front of everyone. But before I get to that, I just want to talk a bit about some of the other stuff as well that got overshadowed, and I think it's important to see that too and to consider it and not let the bad news here overshadow all the good stuff that did happen. And for myself, I am very interested in watching these award shows. I was disappointed that the Golden Globes did not happen. And so I think that kind of gives me something to look forward to see the balance between the differences between the two award shows and so on, as well as just celebrate movies and actors and all the work that goes into it. I think that's why I like that, and it also gets me interested in movies to see. Now, interestingly, also this year was the first time that I had my son watch with me and to watch the whole program. I told him, "This is good. You got to watch it," and it became kind of an historic event too as it went along. And so as someone who loves movies, I think it's again hugely important. Not all the movies that I like are usually nominated, but there were quite a few very good ones this year, especially, and quite talented folks there. And then they won, and well deservedly so. So to get started here, I think one of the things that I actually really liked from the show was. Surprisingly, Kevin Costner's speech. And I loved how he talked about adult movies, but he didn't mean, of course, the kind of movie that comes to mind. And I think that was on purpose, not an accident. But that he was 7 years old and he watched his first movie in the movie theater. And it just like underscored the magic of cinema and the beauty of it, the inspiration that lies behind it, and we can see it because it did obviously inspire him to make movies himself as an actor and later on as a director. And his first movie was a western, and he continued with that. And I loved how he was also talking about not wanting to leave his seat during an intermission because it's a long movie, and back then those long movies, if you remember things like Ben-Hur and so on, or Lawrence of Arabia, there was a musical interlude and intermission, and people would go and then come back and get drinks and then come back. And in that case, he would not leave his seat because he felt he needed to grab onto it, hold onto it, so it would not get lost. He would have that special seat in the audience. I think that was very moving. I didn't like actually Jane Campion, who kind of dismissed him as like, oh, it's dramatic speech and so on. It was heartfelt and resonated with me for sure. That's one thing. And then talking about the winners, Jessica Chastain. She won, and she was in The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and it was a wonderful performance. And that's one of the things where you say, yes, absolutely well deserved. Great film, good film. It didn't get enough recognition, I think, but definitely what lives through it, shines through it, was her very strong acting, and she impressed and impersonated the character she was playing, as actors and actresses tend to do, and the good ones disappear in that role and maybe even add to it. I think she might have come up a bit more, the character might have come up a bit more sympathetic than she might have been in real life. I don't know details about that, but definitely it was very convincing. Of course, then we have Ariana DeBose, who won for Best Supporting Actress. What's important here, it was again also well deserved for her part in West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's version of it. And she's the first openly queer Afro Latina to win, and that was again quite historic, but absolutely well done too. Her performance was quite strong. Not so keen on West Side Story. I didn't really like the first one, the original, and the second one was slightly better, but still did not fascinate or impress. It was well done, but in many cases I felt it was overrated. But again, it didn't win Best Picture, which is a good thing in this case, especially. Then there were some other interesting points again. Encanto won for animated feature, which is again quite good. I thought it was somewhat generic. I thought it was kind of the safe bet here, the most pleasing one because people enjoyed watching it, and maybe that's why it won. I thought the other ones, the other contenders, were equally strong and, in my view, even better. Especially the ones that I had seen. And so whether it was Luca, I think that was the strongest in the batch, or Raya and the Last Dragon, I think they were really well made animated movies. So it should have won, in my view. Though again, it's not the worst decision they made, but definitely one that was driven by popular opinion, I felt. The moment the incident, or again, before awarding here Summer of Soul, which is an excellent documentary, which should have gotten more attention, but which was again diminished because of the incident, the slapping incident, was Summer of Soul, and which I very much enjoyed, and was very well done, about the Harlem Festival that happened in 1969. Some people refer to it as the Black Woodstock, which again, I don't think is fair. I think it's in its own right, and it should have this festival should have gotten much more press. And considering just the times, the statements, the political statements, as well as, and mainly, the wonderful performances. Right, there were great performances from Stevie Wonder to Nina Simone and so on, and it was just a fascinating insight both of the times of what was going on, as well as, of course, the music that lives on. So that was really well deserved, and Questlove made it. Who it was his first directorial debut for this documentary, and uh, it should have gotten again more attention, but like many other things, it kind of drowned because of the incident. Jane Campion won for Best Director. Um, Great film, right? Not the second best film in that batch, I would say, of the ones that I've seen. And she won over Steven Spielberg, and they had a showdown in 1994, I believe, and Spielberg won, but he had made Schindler's List, and she had made The Piano at the time. Piano was an okay film, but Schindler's List obviously well deserved here for Steven Spielberg. This time, I didn't think he should have won, and he didn't, so that is good. P.T. Anderson is somebody who I very much like. I love his movies. And I haven't seen Licorice Pizza yet, but he would be somebody, my go-to person. If he's nominated, if he makes a movie, he should win an award, basically automatically. Although, yes, there are some fluctuations in his work too, but definitely an important director and filmmaker. But again, Jane Campion, well deserved. Made a western about here with great actors, and well done, really well done film, I think. The one that won, obviously, is Coda, which is a dear friend had suggested that movie to me long time ago before it became popular, and it is just a stunning film that it should have won. It did win, and Troy Kotsur also as the supporting actor. I fully commit to that. Again, best screenplay as well. Well done. Perhaps even directing was a chance, but again, there was strong competition as well in that field. But I think Coda was one of the films that also got overshadowed by this, and it should have had much more focus. People should be talking about this film much more than they did. And again, that incident, which we're gonna get to, because I promised I will, and it would be incomplete not to talk about it, of course. But I think Coda should have gotten again more recognition. People should be talking more about the deaf community, the difficulty is that they go through, and so it does have a perspective of again the hearing community, because again Coda, children of deaf adults, and it's the main character is this girl is trying to struggle the two sides. She is the bridge to communicating with others, but I think in their own right, this was really the first time where we watched a movie where most of it was actually in sign language, or large portions of it were. And that was fascinating to me because over the past years, it's something that I've taken on as an occasional hobby, and with my family. So we started learning signing in different terms, our names, as well as just basic communication. And I found that very gratifying to see that too. And it's very challenging to learn. So I learned just by doing it. It's like when you take on a new foreign language and you say, oh my God, this is difficult to pronounce. And how do they do it? Again, the same thing here with that. So I very much enjoyed the film itself, and which is a remake of a French movie, which I haven't seen. But again, really well done, and fully deserved a win there. Again, also for the supporting actor, a deaf actor who was very convincing, and again, well deserved to win this. Yeah, that brings us to the incident, and so it was very strange. So one of the things that the fallout is also kind of strange too. So it started off with a joke by Chris Rock, obviously, about Will Smith's wife and um, her looks, which was not a classy joke, but again, bad jokes are part of it. And as a comedian, I'm sure you people will have flat jokes. Some of them won't work. Some of them are probably you shouldn't have said it, and you kind of regret afterwards. But the reaction was very disproportionate to what he had said. Right, so it was insensitive, but it wasn't to an extent where you would go and use violence on a person. Um, Interestingly, Will Smith's first reaction was he was laughing, and I think he even briefly clapped, until we see the reaction of his wife, and he was attended on that, and suddenly he just switched and just went on stage and slapped his fellow the fellow actor Chris Rock, and in front of the audience. Now, this was completely unacceptable, as we know. It's criminal. It's violence, and it was absolutely wrong. It was stunningly wrong, and it is surprising how someone of his stature, of Will Smith, who has this wonderful, great reputation, who's such a positive, upbeat person, especially in his movies, and suddenly to turn into this monster, because that's the only way I could describe that. And especially also after he did that, and we were shocked. We thought this was part of the show, and I realized that it was not staged. When you see his face, and it was bleeped out, but you can actually lip reading is something that is I've been practicing a bit too, and you can clearly see what he's saying, and the swearing, and just the expression on his face this was a site of a famed actor, of a very popular actor that we had never seen before, and that was shocking, actually. And for some reason, it moved me as well as the world, of course, just because it was also so unexpected. We did not see that, and it shows you also that actors, we see them as role models, but in many cases, they might not be the people we think they are, because anyway, they they're acting, they're given lines, they're pretending, and the roles they choose is something that then we identify them with this, and it's not necessarily true, and there's a mismatch, which we saw in that case, of course. After the incident, he was asked to leave. He did not leave, which he should have. In my view, they should have taken him away right there. Right, the police was ready, but Chris Rock did not want to press any charges, but they would have taken away. The problem here is that it would have looked very bad. They thought, we already had a terrible incident. Now him being dragged off during the live awards shows, I can see why the Academy did not want to do it right away, but then to give him the opportunity to go and speak even after the incident was a bit strange. But it also showed you, because he actually did not really apologize to Chris Rock as he was on stage. That was his moment, and I think it's also kind of the overreaction, not only in the act, the violent act, but also in terms of emotions, and trying to justify that why he did it, which was again completely off as well. And instead of making things better, I think he made things worse. And here we have an incident that he, with a slap in the face of another person, he shot himself in the foot, right? And it basically not necessarily erased his whole career, but did damage his reputation. And if there are calls to take that Oscar away from him, I would support that. Now, is somebody I like, so that's why it hurts so much more. But I think we have to be fair, and the hero in all of this is actually Chris Rock, who is not completely innocent, right? That's important to point out. But what he did was very commendable, because he did not fight back. He stood his ground. He got slapped, and he stood tall, right? And by doing nothing, right? By not necessarily reacting to it in an aggressive way, and he kept his calm. And it's quite interesting, and this is just bizarre. And these times, this world is just moments of complete bizarre moments that we have, like just randomness. And so he gets a standing ovation for being slapped in the face when he has his next show. His sales have profited. Chris Rock, he's sold more tickets because of that, and people are expecting him to respond. He says he's still processing it, and he's thinking of jokes to come up with later on at a later date, not while this is still emotionally raw. And I think that's important. And the whole focus here, and people who justify what Will Smith did, is, well, he did it for his wife. He's trying to protect her, and that was his speech. It did not impress King Richard himself. Richard Williams did not like what happened. He objected to it in clear terms, right? That's important, because Will Smith was comparing himself to him, because that was the person he played, and King Richard himself, or Richard Williams, said, no, this is not me. This is not what I would have done in this situation, and it is an embarrassment in front of a live audience, in front of his daughters, to have that. And again, my son, seeing that, sees the dark side of stardom in many cases. And we'll get to the takeaways of that too, especially relating to stars. In terms of also the wife, I mean, they do, from what I know, they do have an open marriage. So that kind of changes things a bit, in my view, because when you're defending somebody, for me, that is not as close-knit a marriage as a more traditional way would be, People might disagree with that, and that's perfectly fine. But that's again my personal opinion on this. But what is also not acceptable to say I did it for love, and that's what people who abuse their spouses say, right? So we have to be careful of that, of standing up. Yes, he wanted to show his manhood in front of all the audience, but that was completely off. That was completely wrong. What he should have done is just wait it out and later on make a comment, maybe in his speech without, the slap. That would have made him a hero in many ways and say, look, I do not like these comments. People should not make fun of other people who are suffering from certain conditions. And I think that would have been the noble way to do that. And what he did is he gave into his impulses, which were not helping him in that situation. What I hope will not happen is that now everyone will be, which will happen most likely, a case of self-censorship, where people will not make jokes afraid of being slapped in front of people or from the audience, and that is not good, right? It's also the joke itself. We can take it if we have. It's okay. It's not funny, right? But we can still take it if we feel comfortable in our own skin. And I think that was an issue where they said, yeah, we are comfortable with the situation, with our relationship. And I think it shows that the relationship is also fraught with many difficulties. But that's a completely different matter here. And so these are some of the ramblings about this incident. And so let's get to the 3 takeaways, which I have here. And so what can we learn from all of this? Well, the first one I think is hugely important here. Violence is unacceptable and inexcusable, right? So we can't avoid it. In certain cases, yes, it might be necessary, especially when it comes to issues of self-defense. But no matter how we dress it, we try to excuse it or justify it. It is, especially in this specific case, was a case of bullying, right? And it's important to control our impulses and not to give in to that, right? The best way here would be a more diplomatic way of doing it, a reasonable, rational way of reacting and not giving in to your wild impulses. So violence is unacceptable and inexcusable. And I'm talking about specifically here the slap that happened on stage in this situation. The second thing that we get insight into is that celebrities have their own share of problems, right? Celebrities have problems too. And again, they're just actors who take on roles and they repeat lines, right? So that's what they do. And some of them, again, are really good at it, and they make us believe their characters and so on. But we just have to keep in mind that even if you are famous, even if you have fame and fortune, that does not necessarily make you a role model. It gives you attention, so whatever you do becomes magnified in the world, but it doesn't mean that they are good people or role models to follow. And we have to keep that in mind. That is the danger here too, of not just blindly following people we like, right? Famous people. What's also important, that mental health affects everyone, each and everyone, no matter how much money you have, no matter how much fame you have, no matter how privileged you may be as well. It affects everyone, right? We cannot escape it. So it's really important to deal with it. And if I think in many ways it's kind of displacement. It wasn't really Chris Rock he wanted to hit. It was maybe he wanted to show off in this case. He wanted to impress his wife, or there was, again, something between them that made him, triggered him. But it's not, we have to deal with it, right? We have to accept responsibility and deal with it and try our best to treat it in any way that is fit and necessary in that situation. Openly talk about it is good. So let's, and I think that is, again, that's one thing I'm trying to do here as well by doing my programs. And finally, the third takeaway is diversity needs to include the voice of those who cannot speak. And I'm speaking, of course, specifically about CODA, the deaf and mute community. I don't think they have been represented enough. I don't think they have been included enough. When we talk about inclusion, again, we have to ensure that everybody's voice is heard. And in this case, I think that needs to change. Also, a perspective of them, and I think that is hugely needed and necessary. And the problem is with the incident that happened, it took away that focus, and that should have been really the focus afterwards, right? Not the slap between these two. The slap, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, of course. These are again the three takeaways. We're talking about violence. I consider myself a pacifist. I know that violence is sometimes necessary, right? In certain cases, again, perhaps justified, but not in this case, definitely not. And we want to avoid it to the extent that that is possible. Violence is unacceptable and inexcusable. Celebrities have their own share of problems. Mental health is very important for everyone. And finally, diversity, again, is something that we need to look for and expand, and so that everybody is included. So that these are my thoughts about what happened, what occurred in the Oscars 2022. There are still quite a few movies that I have on my list that I haven't had a chance to watch. What is also quite interesting in this year, we also had a streaming network win it, or here in this case Apple, and which is also showing a shift. Good or bad, again, that depends how people feel about it. But it's moved away from the major companies, and now we have networks that are producing their own films, and they're very good films, right? So there is a benefit there, but they might not have seen it in the movie theater. They will see it from the comfort of their own homes. It has good and bad things. I will have maybe a rambling episode on rambling and takeaways episode on my movie experience and movie going experience when I was younger, but that is again for another session. So thank you very much for listening. I do look forward to having you again soon for another session. And please follow, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and to stay in touch. And again, thank you very much for listening. Take care and have a wonderful day.